you don't want that sales pitch.
Yeah. No.
You want the car that is economical, hasn't been in a crash, gets good fuel mileage. Like, that's the kind of car Husker fans are looking for right now. And hey, if it goes 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, that's an added cherry on top. And that'd be if Nebraska goes and competes with the big dogs in the Big Ten right now. But Husker fans are not in the mood to be sold a bill of goods through the summer months that then October, November rolls around and you realize you bought a lemon.
Especially November lately.
Yeah, we've been being sold like the new Corvettes with blown up engines and things like that, where what we really just need is a goddamn Toyota Camry that we know that's going to go 300,000 miles and we can count on it.
Yep.
That's really what it is.
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go! It's time people feel us!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! He gets better and better! If we die, we die!
Man, it's moving a child in that. Put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln.
Welcome into another episode of the Big Red Junkies. I am BJ. This is Jed, and this is the illustrious Elijah Herbal. Elijah, what's up, man?
It's good to be back, fellas. Good to be back. It's been I think it was the is it like the October or November bye week last time I spoke with you fellas?
I think so.
Was that pre-UCLA or pre-Penn State? It was somewhere around that time. All I remember specifically...
I think it was UCLA. We weren't that sad yet.
Because Nebraska was playing Oklahoma at the Pentagon while we were recording. And like it was still the question at the time, like, how good is Nebraska basketball going to be?
Yes.
And like, I don't know, they're down to Oklahoma right now. And then they just absolutely torched it in the second half and beat that Oklahoma team pretty good. So I think that was the last time I was up here. It's good to be back. We're inching closer to football season. It's right around the corner. After a very, very different offseason.
100. Yes. Oh, my God.
One of the most different off seasons I can ever remember around here.
So quiet.
Yeah.
So quiet. There was even stuff to talk about when Scott Frost didn't want to talk to the media.
Oh, yeah. And this year, it's not that nobody cared. It's that everybody was looking for something else to talk about.
Yeah.
You wanted to talk about basketball. You wanted to talk about baseball. You wanted to talk about softball. Once summer rolled around, it was, the 4th of July is coming up at least. Like, it was a very muted recruiting period during June. The dead period during July was like, as somebody who works in radio every single day, it was kind of one of those like, oh boy, okay.
How the fuck are we going to talk about anything for 2 hours today?
What list did CBS Sports release that we can just shit all over?
All the things we would never actually talk about in a normal year.
I think that benefited the football program with basketball being as good as they were.
Yes.
Baseball, softball, all those things.
What good timing.
Yes.
100%. Now that you make it through Big Ten Media Days, which is a couple weeks ago now as we record, but you make it through, and I think it kind of struck me just how intentional it's been from Matt Rhule, where it wasn't like, okay, we're going to let these programs have their limelight, and then once summer rolls around, we'll step into the spotlight. It was very intentionally, like Matt Rhule didn't sit down and have any one-on-ones with any local media.
No.
I mean, almost every coach in the Big Ten is going to sit down with the local media that travels out there kind of as like a thank you for coming. We're going to sit down, give you your 5-10 minutes and chat with you. No.
They had said outside of that Alan or Alex Brenneman interview that he did, the last time he sat down with local media since once Big Ten Media Days it was like April 17th.
Yep.
It was like, holy crap. For a guy like Rhule who likes to talk to everybody at any point, that was a long time of silence.
100% intentional. There's been, at least I think, probably people in his ear saying, listen, the selling of hope that you have been doing at the media, which is important through years 1, 2, and 3 as you're setting the foundation.
Yep.
Whenever the folks or the fans are getting a little bit fed up, the only thing that's going to sell them on this program is winning football games.
Yep. Yeah.
It's only going to piss people off if you get up there and talk about, man, we're so confident in this, we're so confident in that. Even as you make it through fall camp, I think you can hear from the coordinators that there's some confidence from them about what they have back. But even Matt Rhule, he's been short. He's gave us very little to talk about through fall camp thus far. Like steps up there after the scrimmage and very little about what happened during the scrimmage. It was get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Almost like I'm here so I don't get fined type Marshawn Lynch thing.
100%. And it seemed like if it was any of the previous 3 years and he had done the normal thing all the way through summer of a lot of talking and all those things, and then we got that reaction from him after that practice, I'd have been like, that's not good.
Yeah, he's pissed.
Something's wrong. But he kind of just seems almost like you said, like he's almost been muzzled and told, hey, you're up there, say the minimum and get down.
I'm not sure if that's an agent. I'm not sure if that's people within the university. I'm not sure if that's coaches in his circle, who would be telling him that, but it feels so intentional. I don't hate it.
No.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I don't hate it. I think it's good. Focus on the ball and let the chips fall as they may in the fall, but you're not going to get caught with a soundbite like you did last year with, well, this defensive line is going to be hell on wheels.
Yeah.
I mean, we've said it many times on the show, like, as much as we love his long answers and details and everything else, sometimes he talks too much.
Yeah.
And I don't mean, like, the number of times, like, even some of his answers, it's like, okay, you don't need to go on for that long. Like, it's great to hear, but at the same time, maybe keep it a little shorter, and it sounds like he is.
I'm curious if it is all intentional and he's on board with it. Because, like, you could take it either way, but he did make the comments about, like, his media rights getting bought at the Big Ten Media Day stuff, like the post game where he sat, or the post press where he sat down. It almost sounded like he was a little butthurt about it. Like, maybe I read that the wrong way, but I was like, maybe he has been told, like, hey man, we're gonna shut all this other stuff down, stop the noise, stop the away from the program stuff, because the other side of it is, and maybe it was his choice, but I feel like he is very in tune with public opinion. Like, that's something we've been able to see since he got here. And so my question is, do you think that this is intentional from him or for him? Because if it's from him, then it's, okay, well, I oversold this shit and we've under-delivered. And now I just have to get out here and prove it, and I'm pissed, but now I need to be quiet and not be me.
I guess the best way that I'd give my opinion on this, and this is not me saying anything that I have inside information on, but my feel on it is it's Matt Rhule going along with the recommendations of others, of saying, hey, this is not what's best for the program. And Matt Rhule, he's a salesman.
100%.
Those moments where he gets up on his pulpit of sorts and talks about Husker football, it can fire you up. He's a great salesman. It's why I think Nebraska, you look at that 2027 recruiting class, why it's so good right now, despite the lack of on-field success, is Matt Rhule is an incredible salesman. But what Husker fans want right now is not a, for lack of a better term, a used car salesman trying to tell them that the car that was in a wreck last fall that they have done all this work on is going to be great and it's worth the same value you're seeing on Kelley Blue Book for a car that didn't get into a crash.
We bought 3 years worth of those cars.
Yeah.
we need a car that we know is stable right now.
You don't want that sales pitch.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. You want the car that is economical, hasn't been in a crash, gets good fuel mileage. Like, that's the kind of car Husker fans are looking for right now. And hey, if it goes 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, that's an added cherry on top. And that'd be if Nebraska goes and competes with the big dogs in the Big Ten right now. But Husker fans are not in the mood to be sold a bill of goods through the summer months that then October, November rolls around and you realize you bought a lemon.
Especially November lately.
Yeah, we've been being sold like the new Corvettes with blown up engines and things like that, where what we really just need is a goddamn Toyota Camry that we know that's going to go 300,000 miles and we can count on it.
Yep.
That's really what it is. And what we're getting into tonight, we've got a couple topics we're going to get through, but I think talking about the returning production, because this might actually help us get to that steady performance that we're looking for. But also, Elijah's got some extra insight on the trenches that he wants to give. And then we're going to get into our prop bets. So stick around. This is going to be another little bit longer one like last week. We got some positive feedback on that, so we'll give you a little extra tonight. I do want to get into the returning production stuff because of all the things that can point to a team taking the next turn, it's getting older. They always talk about get old, stay old, all those things. We haven't been old since Matt Rhule got here. First year, like year one, yes. And then we had a little bit of age on defense in year two. But last year was all about how many true freshmen and redshirt freshmen were there on the roster. It was like 79 or something like that. Like, it was a crazy number, right? But those guys are all a year older now. We brought in some extra experience, especially in spots where it matters. The returning production being third in the country, when you look at it, I think it was 6-6 on the O&D, but an average out like nationwide at 3, something like that.
Yeah, we're at 3. It was 14 on offense, 7 on defense.
Okay, that's what it was. Either way, that's a lot, right? And that also takes into account the people that transferred in, the fact that they have experience at that position, blah, blah, whatever. Have we talked about it enough?
I mean, I had heard a lot of stuff about it, mainly through the summer, specifically also when this first came out with Bill Connolly, who usually does this stuff. For me, like, there's a massive give and take where you can take something from it, but you can also shoot it down really, really quickly. Last year, Clemson was the #1 returning program. And
Well, we saw how that worked out.
It's why they were ranked number 4 preseason in the country. I was so bullish on that Clemson team.
yeah, and
Same with Penn State.
and then look what they did. So it's it's kind of one of those. Does it mean something? Probably. I mean, hell, a handful of years ago when Northwestern was doing their every other year thing, if you look back at these Bill Connolly numbers, like Northwestern would go like 1-11, and then they'd be the number 1 returning team, and everybody'd be like, yeah, but the team sucked. And then they'd end up winning the division and going to the Big Ten title game. But again, you can also see other situations, like I said, with the Clemson last year and stuff like that. So there's some positives and negatives. I guess it's just how you want to look at it.
It's not college football of 10 years ago where I thought returning production means a lot more. And it's just because you're mixing and matching pieces. And that's what I'll say with this returning production. The sticking point to this for me is the fact that, yes, you're top 10 in the country in terms of returning production. But do we remember a season maybe since, if you go back to Bo Pelini's first year, that has had more question marks going into a season, more, man, I really don't know. There's so many spots on this team where I look at it and I say, I could go either way. But I mean, quarterback, that could change the entire offense. Bringing in the new quarterback
100%.
with a completely different style. I don't know what that means for the wide receivers. I don't know what that means for the running backs. The offensive line, we've talked about the issues with both pass protection and the quarterback that was behind that pass protection last year. Do you have a better pairing there to help out the offensive line? We shall see. Look at the defense. It's an entirely new defensive scheme where you're going 4-man defensive front. Does that allow these guys on defense, particularly in that front seven, that, yes, they're returning, but what they put on the field last year wasn't very good? Does that free them up to go and be great, or are they still the same player? Is it the X's and the O's and the Jimmies and the Joes? A lot of coaches would say it's always the Jimmies and the Joes, but do you have the X's and O's that allow the Jimmies and the Joes to go be Jimmies and Joes to be determined? It's just a season that I cannot remember a season like this. We talked about the offseason, but a season going in where we're in late August at this point, and I have this many question marks about what is the offense even going to, like, what are the pet plays? What is the identity of the offense going to be? What's the run to pass split on this offense going to be? Mm-hmm. I got no idea.
Yeah.
Defensively, is this a blitzing defense where you're bringing 6 or 7 guys a lot? I don't know. Or is this going to be a defense where the linebackers are free to just let the front 4 handle double teams? They can go fly around. What type of secondaries are you running? I mean, we heard maybe some quarters coverage with this Orich defense, but is that what he actually translates and brings to the Big Ten? I don't know. So
we also have to assume he's going to make some changes and adjustments to his game moving to the Big Ten.
Exactly. So there's just so many question marks from the players to the coaches to the schemes with this team that, like, yeah, you can look at the returning production and that's awesome, but you're also putting these guys into completely different situations, potentially a completely different offense, a potentially completely different defense where, I don't know, man. That's the sticking point. But I think coaches will always tell you they'll take guys with more experience over guys with less experience, but can these coaches put it all together and put a product on the field that can get you competitive against top 25 teams? And can you take care of business against the teams that are in your neighborhood in the Big Ten?
I mean, that's what Cignetti's been doing. I mean, he wants production.
Yeah.
If you've had production, I want you. And, that's what almost every coach wants, is how much you can get out of them.
Yeah. My other thing, too, when you're looking at I have so many questions. How much of that is because you don't have as much negative opinion about certain groups? Because this year, that's something I find myself with. Like last year going in, it was like, cool. We can expect the defensive line's going to suck. We kind of all knew that preseason, right?
We had our questions. I still have my questions with this defensive line, but I do think you have guys.
It's more a question, though.
You have guys that got experience, have another offseason under their belt to work on themselves.
Yes.
You've brought in a little bit more experience via the transfer portal. I can expect this defensive line to be better. What I can't expect is how much better.
Yeah.
That's what remains the great unknown. If this defensive line gets worse from last year,
we're going to have problems. We're going to have real problems.
That bye week show later this year might be rough if that's the case. We're all sitting around drinking straight Jack Daniels.
This was a question that I was actually hoping that you'd see in the feed earlier when I was in the comments on your show this afternoon. Was with the strength and conditioning staff being the exact same and the dietary staff being the exact same, why is it we're hearing so much about, they're so much bigger. They're so much bigger. They look so much bigger and stronger this year? My question is it actually just because, going back to the returning production and getting older, they're going from kids' bodies to grown men's bodies, and that might be the answer? They've all got that extra year.
I think it's the same story every year on every team. Every team is bigger. Every team is faster. Every team is stronger. Like it's just kind of one of those coach speak things. That's what you do right before the season starts.
Well, and I think it's a coach speak thing because you're looking at the guys in the building and you can compare them to last year and say, look at all these guys that are bigger, faster, and stronger.
Yes.
But the guys that have been in the program for 5 years that were the biggest, fastest, and strongest last year are now also out the door. That's why it's such a coach speak answer is because if guys have regressed through the offseason,
that's a real problem.
It's a real problem. So
it doesn't make the comment wrong. No. It's just that's just what everybody says.
One thing I will say about the strength and conditioning program that makes me excited is we're 2 weeks into fall camp here as we record, essentially. And have you heard about any long-term injuries coming out of camp?
That's what I said last week.
Any knee injuries, any shoulders, anything
Usually
like
there's
this?
10 to 15 guys coming out of fall camp that at this point are riding a bike on the sideline at the very least.
And there's some maintenance injuries. There's been some guys that have pulled some muscles here and there, but you're not talking about the non-contact knee injuries, which if you go talk with someone.
Please knock on some wood now.
but you go out and talk to those orthopedic surgeons and whatnot, and there's a lot of studies out there that would say that comes from imbalances in your body. Not all the time, but sometimes guys, hey, the quad is stronger than the hamstring. It leads to pressure on the knee and you have knee injuries. Or the Christian Watson case with the Green Bay Packers where they went and did a bioscan on him to try to figure out why he kept on pulling his hamstring, and they realized, well, one of his quads is 20% stronger than the other quad. And it's causing a whole bunch of stress on his hamstring, so he kept on pulling his hamstring, and they go and try to work on that through the offseason and able to stay healthier last year. No, he didn't have any hamstring injuries.
That's crazy. I hadn't heard that story.
It's things like that give me a little bit of hope, Kool-Aid. With the strength and conditioning staff is that early on, and they've been pretty quiet coming out of camp, as we already talked about, but you haven't heard about, man, this guy's got a season-ending injury. We're gutted for him. This guy tore up his knee. This guy's he's going for shoulder surgery. These are things that can be assisted with proper strength and conditioning if you have the right staff in place that can get guys physically ready to go for a fall camp. It helps with things like that. So that's one reason I have for encouragement with strength and conditioning.
Obviously, because it's football, there's going to be guys that are going to be in the yellow jersey that, maybe no contact or light duty.
It's a physical game.
Caleb Benning and Chambliss and Babalade have been in a yellow jersey for a couple of days. But every time it gets brought up, it's never anything like, I'm worried or anything like that. So it's just nagging stuff because it's sports.
It's football especially, where you never know why they're in the yellow jersey. Guys pick up concussions. That's a reality to football. Guys are going to get hit on the hip pointer, and they're all black and blue. And hey, we're going to give them a day or two in the non-contact jersey, give that a chance to heal.
Yeah,
things like that happen. Or you look at the Rocco Spindler situation last year, where that happens during fall camp. That's a guy that's probably in a yellow jersey for a week and back out there with how horrifically he mangled his hand against Minnesota, but he finished the season.
Yeah.
It's things like that. Football's a contact game, but you look for those soft tissue, long-term injuries, and you're not seeing them. And again, knock on wood one more time, because we're probably going to release this episode, and I'm going to watch it back as Matt Rhule announces.
By the time it's out tomorrow, now there's a freaking injury tomorrow morning.
Yeah, Matt Rhule gets out and announces 7 guys out for the year, 4 of whom are starters, and we're going to be idiots.
Please don't. Please don't.
Well, yeah, hell, I just brought up Chambliss and Benning, and Orich talks, I think, on Friday. So let's hope that he doesn't say anything big.
Did I hear right that Benning's been getting some good play with the ones?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. He's definitely in the mix, yeah.
Well,
I like that.
There's the spots that we're all intrigued about, and I think there's some quieter position battles going on just in terms of rotational. Everyone's talking about the right tackle spot right now with Tree Babalade and Gunnar Gottula. Mm-hmm. Everyone's talking about the opposite corner spot from Andrew Marshall with Victor Evans, with a guy I really like with Danny Odom, and then Jeremiah Charles. Mm-hmm. Those are like the spots that everyone's intrigued about, but I'm still intrigued about that safety room.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued about who that inside linebacker is going to be next to Chambliss. I think it's going to be Foster, but hey, I wouldn't count out V9, Vincent Shavers. He gets up there in front of the media.
Sounds like he's making it
camp.
A game. Sounds like he's making it a game for sure.
Sounds like something. The interior rotation along that defensive line, we've been hearing things about Tyson Terry and his return from injury, and could he play a factor in the interior defensive line? I'm still intrigued with Malcolm Simpson, a guy that you brought in from Texas that's a super athletic defensive tackle.
Yep.
Super intrigued about him. There's just more spots, not to mention the fact that the rotation of wide receivers beyond your top 3 gets pretty intriguing. So everyone's focused in on corner and right tackle. I think there's more intriguing positions than just that are probably going to be played out as guys rotate in and out against Ohio and Bowling Green and North Dakota.
How about Gibson Pyle getting a shout out?
Yeah, he did.
That was That was unexpected because for the majority of the guys that have been here, you're not hearing shit. I figured we'd hear Grant Brix's name at least at some point this preseason. It's not happening.
He had a lot of work to do coming in.
Yeah.
He went to
They all did.
He went to a high school where I think they threw the ball like 2 total times his senior year. Yeah, they were.
I did not know
they
that.
were a small Iowa school that just ran the damn ball. Hey, awesome.
Why was it seeming like it was such a recruiting battle then? I don't understand.
Oh, because dude was an athlete. You saw he fired off the ball. He was nasty, but it was small town Iowa. It's kind of the same story you have with Carter Nelson out of Ainsworth, where there just is this step up of different things you have to do at a higher level of football. And with Grant Brix, I think specifically, I mean, he starts out at tackle. It sounds like now he's a guard. Part of me thinks probably due to pass blocking. That is an art and a science that just takes reps to get done. As a guy who was on the offensive line myself at a much lower level, like there's no better way to get better at pass protection than just getting great reps against your ones and getting your ass kicked.
Yeah.
And realizing what you're doing wrong and going back to the film room and going through spring football and back into fall camp. It takes so much time to get that right.
Yeah.
But I'm still intrigued about him. We'll see. 8 guys is kind of the number that they have circled that they want to be working on the offensive line.
Didn't Jeep even say that the other day?
Yeah. So to me, that strikes me as your starting 5, a tackle that can play both sides, a guard that can play both sides, and a center.
And a rotating center, yeah.
By the way, having a guard and tackle that can play both sides, super, super challenging to do. So in an ideal world, they'd probably want 10, but you'll take 8.
Yeah.
Going
that's
from
more NFL model.
Yeah. Going from right tackle to left tackle is super difficult. Going from right
we
guard
watched
to
Gunnar
left
Gottula
guard.
try and do it last year.
Very, very difficult. For a guy that was rehabbing from injury, I had my doubts about that from the start.
Yeah.
That he's rehabbing from injury, and then you're going to try to slot him into the right tackle spot through 3 weeks of fall camp. That's a tough ask for a guy that played left tackle all through high school, and then left tackle his first year at Nebraska. That's like sticking a guy that's been born and bred in America, drove on the right-hand side of the street for his entire life.
We're going to Germany, folks.
And then stick him in London, England, and have him drive in rush hour traffic after 2 hours of practice.
Yeah, not good.
That's the equivalent there. But I'm super happy about Gunnar. I've told this story before. I went to Lincoln Southeast. Gunnar's dad was my head coach at Southeast.
Oh, that's awesome.
All through fall camp, through my entire high school career, he's little Gunnar Gottula hanging out in the sidelines and bringing us water and doing all these things. So
now he's not little anymore.
No. Like midway through college, Gunnar started out his high school career. And I made it over to a Lincoln Southeast game, and I go, when did he grow 9 inches?
Yeah, no kidding.
My God. He went from like little 5'4" Gunnar Gottula to 6'6", 280-pound monster. I'm like, Jesus Christ, when did that happen?
Yeah, steroids. No.
Well, even like his dad's like a tall guy, but his dad, I think, was a what skill position was he at? He played at Wayne State, and he was not a lineman. And Gunnar did not look like a lineman. He was like bigger than the other kids, but not exceptionally so.
Sure.
But just a guy that's been around football for his entire life. And once you hit that frame, that's pretty special. So I'm super excited about him. It sounds like he had a really, really strong summer and now into fall camp. So
that's awesome.
That is a live competition at the right tackle spot, which is
fully healthy for the first time in a year and a half.
And he's gotten all offseason to continue working being a right tackle.
And a real offensive line coach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big deal.
An offensive line coach that is teaching modern techniques.
Yes.
And people are giving me stick about this on our show. By the way, Average Joe Sports Show, 4 to 6, Monday through Friday. Check it out.
We never actually got your intro here.
We'll get back to that. But like, there's a couple things with Donovan Royella that he talked about in like media sessions and you see out of practice that are, for me, who played offensive line and I got to go to learn from a lot of great coaches, a lot of different camps around. And he was teaching, like, you want knuckles up so you can't hold. Listen, nobody's taught that in college football for 30 years. Maybe that one guy at Notre Dame who does, but that's not something you hear taught in modern football. You want to go thumbs up, it's a stronger position. Corey Brown talks about that. It's same for defense and offense. Stronger position there. He would use like a kind of a forearm shiver technique on double teams, which is sort of utilized and to keep the offhand free whenever you're double teaming a guy. Like, the way he taught it was kind of weird to me. And then anyway, long story short, Jeep Wade brings in some more modern minor techniques along with a different kind of mentality that he wants to instill in his offensive lineman. I've been super high on that hire since it was announced way back in the spring.
Well, and everywhere he's been, it's worked. So, I mean, it's gotta do something.
Mm-hmm. And he's got to handpick the talent that he's brought in on that offensive line. I think
the investment that they put on the O-line this year Nobody can complain about it.
I think, and you're not going to have the numbers to back this up, but kind of from what I understand, it's going to be one of the highest paid offensive line units in the Big Ten.
I would assume.
I believe it.
You went out and had some recruiting wins where you get Mabanga over a school like Alabama who wanted him bad. You get Brendan Black from Iowa State, despite the fact Penn State still wanted him. Matt Campbell wanted to bring Black along with him to Penn State. Nebraska goes and wins that recruiting battle. Tree Babalati is a guy that had a lot of SEC interest as well. Part of that's Lonnie Teasley coming and following him. That was his primary recruiter back in the day, but it's a guy that has all the athletic potential to be a great offensive tackle. Can he put it all together? We'll find out. And
does
again,
it not almost sound like
Gunnar too? But
does it almost not sound almost exactly like the why am I blanking right now? Left tackle Pritchett's same situation as last year. Like they're just looking for consistency.
In Pritchett, similar with Babalati, where Babalati came in true freshman. He's playing left tackle for South Carolina. They kind of go to the transfer portal. He didn't do great his true freshman year. They move him to the right side. Really struggles there. Gets demoted down to the bench. Same as Pritchett at Alabama.
Yeah.
He came in highly touted left tackle. They throw him in there early. He kind of struggles. They move him to the right side. He struggles even more, looking for a new landing spot. You put him in a spot with consistency. And one of the things I'll give Rhule credit for, is Coach Rhule, I should say, is that he did develop his starting 5 offensive linemen well. Yep. I thought the big issue with Coach Rhule was beyond guys 1 through 5.
Yeah.
There was very little development going on. So one of the things I'm looking for Jeep Wade, less than this year, this offensive line with the investment needs to go out and play like I'd say a top 5 unit in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That's what they need to do. That's my expectation for them. And I am probably more confident in this offensive line living up to that than any other offensive line since I started covering Nebraska 8 seasons ago.
I've heard you say that a couple times.
I'm going into season 9 now. I'm pretty confident in this offensive line, but how you judge Jeep Wade is the guys like Gottula, like Gibson Pyle, like Grant Brix. What do they look like down the road? So you don't have to go to the portal to continue having dominant or good to dominant offensive line play.
Well, that was one of the things that was being said by fans going into last year, where they were like, what does it say about Raiola's development? Again, Coach Rhule, how he develops
he was
players.
going into his 4th year.
When it, like 3/4 of the offensive line are all transfers. You know, what does it say about the development considering the guys that we had recruited and everything else like that? So, yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking for Jeep Wade to start to do. And the fact that he's saying we want at least 8 guys, that tells me he's not just focused on the 5.
And another thing I'll add to that is with the current rules in college football, I think another thing that helps that immensely is the fact that you have 2 offensive line coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have both Jeep Wade and then a guy that doesn't get talked about enough in Lonnie Teasley. Is that not similar shades of Milt Tinniper, Dan Young back in the day?
Yeah.
We're able to tag team the offensive line and get eyes on all these guys and make sure they're developed properly.
Specialize at positions. Yeah.
You have enough resources in the offensive line room to be able to give every single guy in that room the necessary coaching, the necessary eyes on, the necessary split off in meeting rooms. You have 2 offensive line coaches. You could have a meeting, one for the top 8 guys and one for the guys that are further down the depth chart, going over the practice film and saying what you guys need to do better, which gives more one-on-one coaching time to all of these guys.
100%. On the other side of the ball, the defensive line that we are much less convinced, I guess I would say, of. I'm not as down on them as I was going into last year, for sure. But I did have to catch myself as I was scrolling through some articles and things like that. I happened to see a quick picture, literally on the scroll up, of Tyson Terry, and I was like, wait a second. Is that Hutmaker? What's going on here? He looks just like him. I literally tweeted out, I was like, do we find our next polar bear? Like, what's going on here? There's been a lot of talk about some guys that we hadn't heard their names, right? We're hearing some resurgence of guys that it sounds like they've got much bigger bodies, at least on the inside. What's his name? Dylan Berryman. I just want to see the dude go out there. He looks like Vita Vea. If he can play even like a quarter, like 25% of what Vita Vea can do, let's go.
I'm not sure I'd expect him to contribute much in year 1. We shall see. Corey Brown had some comments the other day where he kind of talked about the fact that from if you read in between the lines, it was from a strength and conditioning point of view, that guy has some work to do. And he needs to get up to par with that because I assume this offseason for him was, hey, we're going to get you strength-wise as close to up to par as we can in the Big Ten. And if you know much about how putting on muscle works, can't do it in caloric deficit, or at least it's very inefficient. So you let the guy put on some bad weight in addition to the good weight. And then as you play through a season and you get into next summer spring and summer, you can cut some of that off and it kind of gives you a better starting place. So I'll be surprised if you get more than some of that spot duty second half of Akron, Ohio, Bowling Green. But if he's able to get himself into shape as the season progresses, that'd be a big addition for you just as a run stuffer. Hey, 3rd and goal at the 2-yard line. We got a 350-pound monster we can put in for one snap.
Yeah.
Yeah, go clog it up.
Yeah.
Go get out there and just sit down. I'm more excited about the edges, I think, than I am about the interior D line. It's just going to be wait and see. Because with what's his name, Whittington, coming in from Pitt, I'm very excited about that. But it also just looks like another Cam Lenhart playing on the inside. Like that's what it strikes me as. They're basically the same size.
And he talked about this week. He does give me some Aaron Donald vibes.
Yes, I've said this.
He does give you some Aaron Donald vibes, which is
he's violent with his hands.
So it's so different than Cam Lenhart.
That's true. Okay, I just meant size wise.
I think Lenhart was out of his element playing on the inside. He also talked about that moving back out to the outside. Like that's the big thing with this Orange defense is can you get the front four playing in positions that are natural and can minimize their weaknesses while accentuating their strengths? I think Lenhart much better equipped to take on a double team from a tackle and a tight end than he was from a tackle and a guard.
Yes.
Simply from
and just get buried.
Whereas I look at Whittington, it's not beating a double team in the Ty Robinson sense where you're standing up one guy fighting off the other guy from the side, shedding the block. He would use speed and a little bit of chaos in order to defeat a double team, which works differently, but it has the same result in the end. That's kind of what I see from him. And I don't think Lenhart has the same quick feet and violent hands that Whittington does.
That's fair.
The thing that stands out to me, he's got the hands, but the feet and the activity from Whittington and the reaction of kind of understanding how an offensive line is attacking him quickly, I think is very, very solid. Does it translate to the Big Ten? We'll find out.
We'll see.
That's the story with this defensive line, though, is can guys take steps through the offseason, and for the transfers, does it translate to the Big Ten?
Yeah.
There's so many options in that defensive line. So many guys that we have either seen on the field or heard plenty about where, like, just about every position on the defensive line, you can go 4 deep with guys that have either been getting praise from coaches in years past, or you've seen them on the field in limited capacity, or their transfers coming in that have started elsewhere.
The expectation is just sitting there waiting for them to step up.
The question to me is it a logjam because you have so many guys in there that are similar, or can you have guys that step up and turn themselves into players and guys that offensive coordinators have to circle on that defensive line?
My biggest question there is Nwaneri. Is pushing him out further on the edge and giving him more of that extra 2 or 3 step Myles Garrett approach style edge play? Because, I mean, body style wise, that's somebody you can compare him to. Is that going to help him? Because last year, like athletic freak wise, you don't get much more than that. Where was it? And they talked about consistency, but the consistency questions started to come up towards the end of the season when you started to see the defense basically start mailing it in after USC.
And Nwaneri, he showed flashes last year. Like the Maryland,
but it was early.
I think it was the Maryland game, and he was dealing with a foot injury. I think he had some turf toe issues going on through the year last year, but you saw the flashes. And he's another guy, you talk about the utilization where if you're not putting him head up a tackle and it's his job to have a 2-gap responsibility, both inside with the guard and outside all the way to the sideline, maintaining the edge. If it's just maintaining the edge and hey, on 3rd down, you can go get after the passer, is that advantage Nwaneri just based on his frame? Because I
don't want to be that tight end, I'll tell you that much.
It is not Randy Gregory, but that is kind of like the utilization that I'd hope that they could use for him of being more that chaos, speed, get off the edge, and use your athleticism to go play the run as opposed to brute strength, which last year I think there was a lot of you need to go be a guy that can stand up to an offensive tackle, stand him up in his tracks, maintain that edge, and let other guys go make plays. That wasn't him. Yeah. In going and crashing down on pulling guards that are trying to kick him out on counter plays, not him. That's one of the reasons why Nebraska got killed in the counter last year. You have to get better at that, but can you have defensive tackles on the inside that stand their ground better and give less of a hole once that kickout does happen? I mean, there's so many things that can help him in a defensive scheme.
More than anything, even if they're not better, more bodies on the inside is going to help. Like they've added more bodies on the inside that are worthy of playing inside on the D-line. I think that's a big piece. Do you have anything else on the D-line?
Nope.
No?
It's the D-line. There's reason for encouragement, but there's a lot of wait and see there just in terms of can guys take the steps that are possible to be made after, hey, you've got yourself thrown into the fire last year in Big Ten play. You know where you need to improve. Can you make those improvements? And then can you have a coaching staff that sets guys up for success by putting you in a position that's that will minimize your weakness. That's what I'm curious about.
How much do you guys think that having more experience and a higher level of play coming from that linebacker group is going to help the D-line?
I mean, it could only help them. I mean, I love the fact that we got Corey Brown as the defensive line coach.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually have a competent defensive line coach now. Looking at stats from South Dakota State, trying to figure out, the pressures that are going to come from Orange's defense. The fact that you have 4 guys that had 9+ tackles for loss. 3 of them were on the edge. One of them was a linebacker. And we're getting one of those linebackers who had 9.5 tackles for loss last year with Chambliss. That tells me that they're going to get off the ball and they're going to attack the hell out of everybody behind the line of scrimmage, not just try to stand there and, like you talked about with Winery, just to hold guys up to
let them come. Let them come.
So, I mean, when you have a more violent defensive line, it's going to free up the linebackers more and more.
I guess the best way to put it is there's playing your run fits and there's attacking your run fits. And
Yes.
I'd like to have linebackers that flow more downhill, but the defensive line can also help out the linebackers. If you have guys in the interior that can stand up double teams and keep that offensive guard or offensive tackle or center, whoever it may be, from getting up to second level, and I've mentioned this on the radio a couple times before, go back and watch those games where Nebraska got gashed on the ground. Michigan, Penn State, Iowa. Look at how little respect those offensive lines had for Nebraska's defensive line.
Oh,
It was,
they weren't trying that hard.
They're putting one hand on a defensive tackle and they're getting straight up to linebacker and smoking the linebackers 4 or 5 yards deep in the defensive backfield. Now, you need your linebackers to flow downhill a little bit more, but you as a defensive lineman also need to help out your linebackers and free those guys up to go make plays. The 2 things go hand in hand. Is the linebackers could have been a lot better last year, but the defensive line really should have helped out those linebackers more and freed them up to go make plays. But it's hand in hand, as I said, because if you have linebackers that are attacking and flowing downhill and they trust the secondary behind them, really, really helps your defensive line as well to know if I make a mistake, I have linebackers behind me that are going to clean things up because they're flowing downhill and attacking.
Yep. That was one of the biggest things, I think, watching some of the Orange film from San Diego State to here is they actually attacked with their front 7. Last year, I felt like the majority of the game, especially where we were a little overmatched on the lines, a little bit is an understatement. But it was so much of a, not to make a pun, but playing defense instead of attacking on defense. Like they were only reacting to whatever was happening. There was no try to get back. I don't know if there's gonna, like we said, we don't know what he's gonna change to come to the Big Ten, but I hope that doesn't change.
No,
that'll be big.
And I wonder if last year any of that was a defensive coordinator that also lost faith in his defense, so he was unwilling to attack because...
Who lost faith first? Was it the coordinator or the players?
Well, I think the coordinator lost faith in the defense, and the defense lost faith in themselves very shortly following, where, I mean, the defensive coordinator is not making any adjustments to try to help him out.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a team in USC that has a third-string running back gashing you down the field, and the only reason you're in that game is because Lincoln Riley's getting cute in the red zone, that doesn't feel great. And then your quarterback goes down, you realize, oh boy,
this is not good.
You got Penn State and Iowa coming up on the schedule. It's going to get bad here. They lost confidence, but I think another thing, go back, watch the Michigan game, and there were moments where Butler tried to get attacking defensively, and it was absolute boom or bust. And by boom or bust, it was either stop at the line of scrimmage or here's 70 yards later, Justice Haynes hitting his head on the goalpost. One of them, it was the first long touchdown. Nebraska tried to get creative and do a run twist on the inside. And Michigan ran right at it, and the defensive end, I think it was which defensive end was it? Doesn't matter.
I know what you're talking about. It's the left side.
Yeah, left side, where they try to twist around, and both the defensive tackle and the edge get caught on the outside, and it opens up that huge hole where Buford, and people are going to complain about Buford's angle, but could have driven a truck through that hole, and against a running back like Haynes, it's not going to work.
Gotten at least 20 yards in that play.
That's the type of moment where I'm like, that's the type of moment where it's John Butler loses the faith in his defense to be able to be aggressive whenever they can't go out and execute a simple twist like that.
Yeah. That's tough. Are we ready to get on to the all-important season prop bets?
Yeah, let's move on with the comedy of errors that was the defense last year.
Right before that, I since we're talking about some position groups, I do want to get to this mailbag question from Hunter real quickly.
Hunter, what's up, man? You've been active. We appreciate you.
He says, what players / position groups besides Calandria do you need to see do well in the first 3 games to say this will be a good season?
Well, shit, we should have asked this 15 minutes ago.
I mean, as we're going through this conversation, I'm like, I think we're answering this question, but I still want to be able to bring it up. I mean, just not say that what we've just been talking about. I think the obvious question is the running backs, just to see that room because of the inexperience that it has. But also at the same time, through these first 3 games of nobodies, am I going to get too hyped up over whatever happens?
Yeah, the running backs might look great against them.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I think the answer that's going to be an odd one out here is actually the wide receivers. With the way Calandria likes to play, which is to be the playmaker that's going to go off script, you have to have wide receivers that are knowledgeable enough to be able to go find their spots and get in a place where they can go catch a ball from a guy like that they did not have to do for the last 2 years. That's a completely different. So like a guy like Quasi Gilmore coming in who's completely off the radar, had no Dylan Raiola experience, he might even be at an advantage here because, well, he was already playing with a guy that played like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could list about any room in this team.
Yeah.
I think you guys have laid it out just to be different and be interesting. I think the secondary can take a lot of pressure off that front 7 by being locked down in the back end. If you have attacking linebackers that are flowing downhill, you can be susceptible to play action. Huge on your defensive backfield to be able to be locked down on receivers, on tight ends, in man coverage, where you can be freed up to have your linebackers flow downhill and be wrong, and it's not going to be 40 yards in a cloud of dust. Like,
do you think
that's one thing to avoid? But that's not. It's to me, it's offensive line. It's running backs and defensive line.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm a fool for feeling like...
Oh, sorry.
I spoke too slowly. Do you think I'm a fool for just kind of taking the Addison Williams thing effect for granted and just assuming they're going to be good and likely even better than they were last year?
I'm kind of assuming they're going to be good because they're bringing back one of the best defensive backs in the entire conference and also an experienced guy with McDougal who knows the defense. So,
not to mention Donovan Jones, who was he perfect last year? No, but for a young guy, did he flash? Absolutely.
Yeah, and you got a guy that got a lot of experience, Rex Guthrie. You've got Jeremiah Charles that's been in the system for a while that everybody's loving. And
Jameer Khan, a guy that flashed in his experience in the field, both on special teams and then also playing on defense.
Justin Rhett came on, really well towards the end of the season. You've got the high level freshman that you talked about earlier, Danny Odom, coming in. You get all of them under Addison Williams, and I like that combination.
And a name you didn't mention there, that it's probably a bad thing that this happened, but Caleb Benning led the team in tackles against Utah.
Yeah. I mean, he started the game, so yeah.
Yeah, a guy that we're not talking. Your safety should not be leading your team in tackles, but it says a lot about a guy that he was able, and he's one of the smaller guys in the field, to go lead a team in tackles against a physical downhill team like Utah.
Who does that sound like? 2 years ago.
Brain farting. Who?
I asked that question because I can't remember his name either. No.
He would never compliment Hartzog like that.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No. Played safety.
Gifford.
Okay, that's what I'm going for.
Okay.
Isaac.
Okay.
Yeah. The Lincoln Southeast Knight, you forgot his name.
I did.
Shocking.
I did.
Shocking.
I also called him Luke like 17 times.
Well,
that
yeah,
season,
I think everybody did.
Yeah. That is what it is. But no, I think that great question and good shout out to good time to pull. If you guys haven't already, if you're watching on YouTube, you've been staring at a graphic that already says check out the new fan hub. But if you haven't, definitely jump in the description of the show. There's a link in there. We set up a fan hub for you guys to get in there and interact with us on the show. There's a Twitter-like board. It's called the Boneyard that you can go in there and post away. Don't get too crazy with the Iowa fans because they won't be there. But there's also a mailbag spot where you can go in. You can either record something that we'll try and throw on the show, or we'll read it off for you. Either way, it's a good interactive landing page. It's all free. It's all for you guys.
All right, let's get into these preseason prop questions.
Do it.
Do we have results from last year? Did we ever?
You won last year. You
did. I think by 1 or 2.
It was. Let me. I can probably find it real quickly, but I think you were 8-3 out of
I ran away with it.
I think I either had 7 or 6 or 7.
The 3 of our props for the whole season long came down to the last week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down to the last week.
Yeah, look, here it is.
all the listeners out there, you listen to a whole bunch of ball knowers right now.
Or a whole bunch of people that can't pick shit. But it was me and Matt going head to head, leading like the whole season, and then the last, I think it was the bowl game, wasn't it? Matt and I both shit the absolute shit out of it. We went like 2-8, and Jed went like 8-2 and ended up taking over.
So last year we had 11 questions. BJ went 3-8.
Yeah, it was great.
Matt went 6-5. The fans went 5-6. I went 7-4, and Elijah, you went 8-3.
Feels good.
Hey, I was right there with you, just on the opposite side.
Yeah.
Well, especially I think 2 years ago, I finished like last or second to last.
Oh boy.
And I think the fans won it 2 years ago. So it feels good to get some redemption on the fans.
We had a couple fans that followed along with us all season doing them in the comments. And there was a couple of them that got close to beating us.
Yeah. But none of them did. No, I'm kidding. I don't remember. All right, we got 12 questions, and Matt has sent me in his answers, so we'll get his answers in here too. First question is, who will have the most running back carries between Mekhi Nelson, Isaiah Mosey, Quentin Ives, and Jamal Rhule? I mean, it's everybody basically, obviously outside of Rhule, who's a freshman this year, didn't play. The returning carries is 27, 26, and 20. So it's not like any of them, pun intended, I guess, ran away with this.
I don't see Tyke Hayes on here.
Yeah, exactly. Neither does anybody else.
That's a reason for confidence with the running back room, is it not? Not to go complete sidebar here as we try to do the props, but the fact that you bring in a guy for some competition, and I mean, he was buried through fall camp. That was a guy that did not fit into the room from the jump. I think that says a lot about what you have in the running back room, that you brought in a guy from Penn State, highly recruited, was probably going to be the starting running back for Iowa Western this season.
Yeah.
You bring him in, and he is buried on your depth chart.
And now maybe he still will be the starting running back for Iowa Western.
And I hope he is. You know what? I hope he is.
I would agree with you if I hadn't heard the comment by Dana Holgerson in that little sideline interview thing where he said, I don't even think he knows who I am.
Yeah.
I took that as a funny comment, like, oh, he's just trying to get his legs under him.
And then 3 days later,
it's like, oh, maybe that was actually a problem. Like, he just doesn't care and isn't paying attention.
Yeah, we had when Dana Holgerson talks, the lack of filter. We
gotta scrape
listen.
that.
You gotta
scrape it. And sometimes it seems like 2 or 3 days later, you're going to see something else about that. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
By the way, before you guys give your answers, I'll just give Matt's. He said, he picked Mekhi Nelson. He said, I don't think we will have a workhorse like Emmett was, but I think he's the most ready of anyone in that room. So he's taking Mekhi Nelson.
If I'm going to go with my gut, I should just go ahead and take Ives because that's the only one on this list that I wouldn't pick. So therefore, I'd probably be right.
He's the most experienced guy.
It's true. He's also the slowest by far. I'm going to go with a flyer here and take Rhule. The stuff that I'm hearing about him, especially with his ability to get in space and break away, I just don't know if they're going to, like, it might not be first quarter of the season, but I think by the end of the season, he's going to be the guy.
Yeah.
I'm taking Mosey also as a flyer. I think he's the most dynamic with the ball in his hands. He just has a ways to go to learn how to be a running back. And hey, maybe he can get that experience through fall camp and through the first few games of the season. But with the ball in his hands, he has the most make you miss. I think he's got the most explosion to him. It's just a question of, can he learn how to be a running back, and can he be ready this year to be a running back? I think the most game ready right now is probably Mekhi Nelson. And then Rhule's got so much upside as well. He steps in with such a higher floor, I believe, than most freshman running back. Kind of shades of like whenever you had Burkhead and Abdullah, kind of where Burkhead stepped in and he looked ready to take the torch at the end of Helu's career. And then Amir Abdullah steps in, he looks ready to take the torch at the end of Burkhead's career. Might be a case like that with Rhule where a guy just steps in and is pretty ready to go. Does that mean he leads the team in carries? I'm not convinced, but I'm really, really excited to see him.
Yeah.
I think the smart bet is Nelson, but I agree with you, BJ. I think by the end of the season, Rhule is going to be going to kind of take over that room.
I'm surprised to only see one pick for Nelson.
Who was the kid that spurned us last minute to go to Ole Miss and then wound up being their bell cow last year?
Jesus! As soon as you say his name, it's like, yeah, exactly. And everybody watching him
Lacey.
Yes,
Lacey. There you go.
Yeah.
Can Rhule be Lacey? I don't know.
Oh,
some of the clips from practice the other day kind of looked like it. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make a bet on that one. If you would have asked me before I saw those clips and some of the stuff that people said about him, I would have taken Nelson.
I do also, if you go back and watch Rhule's high school highlights from like his junior year, he does kind of look like a college running back playing in high school.
A little bit, yeah.
Got good contact balance. What stands out to me is his vision. I think he might step in right now and have the best vision in that running back room in terms of the natural feel of.
That's big for a true freshman.
Make that one cut and get upfield.
That's big for a true freshman.
Second question is total offensive yards by Anthony Calandria. I'm putting this at 3,450. Last year he had just over 4,100 with 3,400 passing yards, 600 rushing yards. I did a big deep dive into quarterbacks in the last 4 years that moved up from Group of 6 to the Power 5, and how they performed in their first year at the Power 5 level. And based on some of those numbers and, the decrease in passing yards, I've got Calandria projected at roughly 3,100 passing yards. Also, the 3,450 that I have his number at would have been 6th last year in the Big Ten for total yards. 5 of the top 6 from last year are all returning and all quarterbacks. So he's got a lot of contention as far as that.
This one.
Okay.
It's a really good number you've set. The question to me is
he does his math.
Is how much, especially against teams like Ohio, Bowling Green, North Dakota, I'll throw in Maryland in there, how much of the offensive production gets taken off of his plate because you don't want him running the football and it's going to the running backs, it's going to other guys.
This will ultimately include the bowl game too, so give you that.
If we get to a bowl game, right?
We're making them.
It'll be close. Give me a tight over.
Okay.
A tight over for Calandria. I think there's also going to need to be some games, see Indiana, Oregon, where he's going to need to put the team on his back. So where it could be one of those games where he has 38 passing attempts just because Nebraska needs to stay in the football game.
Yeah. I am going to go, I'll give you Matt's first. Matt took the over. You said a tight over, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I just want to make sure I had that right. Matt took the over. He said, I don't think we will put up last year's numbers, or he will put up last year's numbers. Almost no quarterback looks good coming up from a lower school, but he has a good line and some talent at wide receivers to work with. Man, I'm going to go with a slight under. Because even, anything between 3,250 and 3,550, he's still going to be in the top 6 as far as total yards.
And to average it out, I just did the math. It would be 265 total yards per game across 13 games. So say 225 yards passing, 40 yards rushing. Also, given the fact there's probably some games early where he's not playing a full 4 quarters.
Yeah. I kind of want to take the over, but I think the safe bet is the under.
I'm taking the over.
Okay.
I would bet he averages total yards average closer to 300 a game. I have a weird feeling about this offense this year. The way that Dana Holgorsen seems to have a little bit of that like Texas swagger back to him that he didn't have last year at all. Like last year he talked confidently and he constantly had to reference how smart Dylan Raiola was and constantly fellatiating the golden boy. But he didn't really ever have that like air of confidence, and where Rhule is being very cagey and quiet and not acting overly confident on anything. Most people are not acting overly confident on anything. He kind of has this bounce in his step like, cool, we're going to go fuck some shit up.
I hope so.
So I really think the offense is going to pop off this year. I think that it's going to take a lot of pressure off our defense to be good.
All right. Question number 3. Who will have the most receiving targets? Last year's numbers were Isaiah Hunter had 64, Jacory Barney had 62, Quasi Gilmore at UCLA had 84. Just for comparison purposes, as far as Calandria spreading the ball around, last year his top targeted guy was Bradley with 94 targets. The next highest was 47.
Holy shit. It's like you knew I was going to ask the question about how much you spread around last year. I'm so glad you had that reference because that actually tells me a lot more than what I needed to know, and it's going to Barney. Done. Okay. Like, done.
Barney is the one that apparently is signing autographs, and every signature he signs, he's writing down 1,000 receiving yards that he's going to get this year. So he's pretty confident. I
like the confidence.
I don't agree with him that he's going to get that much.
Well,
but
I'm
whatever.
not sure anyone on this roster is going to have 1,000 receiving yards this year, just because it's a logjam in that wide receiver room.
Yeah,
I'm not even counting out Quinn Clark in this.
You're right, but I'm just going to go with the top 4 guys because those are or top 3 guys because those are the most likely guys.
So, I do think Quinn Clark has an outside shot at it, but it all comes down to who Calandria kind of develops that rapport with.
So basically the choices is Isaiah Hunter, Jacory Barney, and Quasi Gilmore. So I guess between those 3 guys, who will have the most targets?
Give me Quasi Gilmore.
Ooh.
Gilmore, okay.
He has experience playing with a
Wrong
quarterback like Calandria during his time last year at UCLA. I think that can benefit him.
That's actually a really good point.
I think that can benefit him.
Yeah. Matt is taking Hunter. As long as he and Calandria are clicking, Hunter seemed to have the most potential upside at the end of last season.
I think Hunter had the most memorable moments of last season, catching balls. He made some of those down the field sideline catches that we didn't see anybody else do.
Not to mention the couple screens he took to the house where you saw that dude glides with his speed.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go with Gilmore as well.
Are you?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting sucked that way, but I'm not. I'm going to be the odd man out on Barney here.
I tell you what, 3 questions in, I'm giving myself like a 0% chance to be 3 for 3. Those are some good questions.
All right, question number 4. Sacks allowed by Nebraska. I put the number at 19.5. Nebraska is averaging basically 30 sacks allowed for the last 5 years, each year for the last 5 years. Jeep Wade offenses allow 15 per year in the last 5 years. That number is kind of inflated because in 2021 with Georgia Southern, they allowed 28 sacks. So just imagine how low that average would have gone without that number. The Big Ten teams averaged 24 of a season in the last 2 years. And excluding 2020 for obvious reasons, Nebraska has not been under 20 since 2016. So 19.5 sacks allowed.
But the wild card is you have a mobile quarterback now.
That's literally what I was about to ask you.
Yeah, but in some of those years, we've had Adrian Martinez. So, it's at least comparable in that aspect.
I'll dive in first here because through fall camp here, I have done a lot of film evaluation of Anthony Calandria. I have watched most of his games last year from UNLV, like not the highlights going full, like, okay, let's see what happened against Air Force, like just straight sicko stuff. And Calandria, for as exciting as he is, again, the UNLV offensive line was not great, but even whenever he had a clean pocket, he is known to try to run from some clean pockets and run himself into some trouble. I will go over on that number, but not by much. I got Nebraska probably like 23-24 this year.
And UCLA allowed 26 sacks last year, by the way.
I'm going to go over for the simple fact that I just looked up Michigan's number last year, who also had a mobile quarterback and a as good, if not better, offensive line than what we're going to have this year. They gave up 21. So I'm going over here.
Okay. I'm also going to go with the over. By the way, Matt took the over. He said he's looking forward to what Jeep Wade does, but he needs to see some proof first.
Well, book it. We're all in agreement. It's going to go under.
Yep. Which good. I hope it does. Like, holy hell. Question 5.
If it goes under and we are matching what half of our sack total was, a half or more of our sack total was in one game last year.
Yeah.
That's going to be wild.
Rushing touchdowns allowed by Nebraska's defense, 18.5. Last year, we allowed 30, which was tied for the 4th worst in the entire country. San Diego State last year only allowed 9, which was tied for 4th best. Orch's defense, in his 2 years as a defensive coordinator at Idaho, allowed 36 total, so roughly 18 a year. So rushing touchdowns allowed by Nebraska's defense, 18.5. So basically, are we going to split it?
So that's a rushing touchdown and a half every game.
You know what my question here is in the Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State games, how much are we going to make them drive the full length of the field? Because if it's inside the 10, that number goes over, in my opinion. If we are giving up bigger scores, that number has a chance of going under.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds weird to be hopeful, but
I think it also depends on
purposes,
what we do in the first 3 games. If we borderline shut out the first 3 opponents, that's going to help that number drastically.
Well, and not to mention, you look at the schedule, how many teams on the schedule this year are like, all right, F you, run it at you type offenses. Probably Michigan State with Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Maryland is.
Not Maryland at all.
I don't think Oregon is.
But at the same time, does Michigan State have the talent to be able to do it? They might have that mentality, but whether or not you can do it is a different combo.
Indiana will burn you all day with the RPO. They're going to be pretty balanced. So that's a team that could do it. Washington, they lose Jonah Coleman from last year. They had Damon Williams. You assume they're going to probably air it out just a little bit more, though their offensive line had some pass protection issues last year, which is a concern I have for Washington. But they're not like a FU run it down your throat type of team. Mm-hmm. You have Illinois, who's going to try to be. I'm not sure if they have the Jimmies and the Joes to do it. but that's their identity. Iowa, out of nowhere this fall camp, seems to have both a quarterback and a high-level wide receiver. Where did that come
Yeah,
from?
no
What's happening?
So I still think they're going to run the hell out of the ball, but are they going to be the same Iowa that they have been? You look at the schedule this year, and for as horrific as the schedule looks on its face, in terms of, I still think Nebraska's potential weakness is going to be rushing defense. You really don't have that many teams on the roster that are like, F you, we're going to run it at you 45 times this game, try to stop it, as you did even last year. But with that being said, I think I'm still going to go over.
Okay. I'm going to go under.
I talked you into it.
You did talk me into it. Yeah, you did.
Matt is also taking the under. He said this defense will look considerably different than last year. We got some new talent up front and are coming back to a more traditional approach to the run game.
Here's another thing while you contemplate.
Yeah.
The last 2 seasons, look at them back to back. We went from an atrocious secondary to a lights out secondary and a really good rush defense to a lights terrible.
The ping pong.
Yeah. So I guess we're due for a good running year.
You
set a good line for yourself there, guy.
Yeah. This number I struggled with to even come up with. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the over. Question number 6. I think this is one of the, talk about storylines that we know not enough people talk about. I think this is one of the big ones. Red zone conversion percentage allowed.
Ugh.
Nebraska was 135th out of 136 teams last year with 97.3%, which
Is that touchdowns and field goals?
total
Yeah,
scoring.
yeah.
Yep. We only defended one, and that was the blocked field goal against Akron in the third quarter. Otherwise, it was 100%.
Oh my God.
So we only stopped him in the red zone one time all last year.
That's horrible.
And it was against freaking Akron.
Why are you trying to depress me right now?
Oh man.
No,
For a guy that does this for a living, that surprised me just now.
That's bad.
I knew it was bad. I knew the number was horrible. I didn't know it was just the one against Akron.
just the one.
That's wild.
Against Akron.
San Diego State last year was third in the entire country at 68.9%. The middle of the country, roughly the 65th team, was at 84%. So I put the number at the middle of the country. Can we get there at 84% for red zone conversion percentage allowed scoring?
Another thing we ping-ponged on, because if you think about 2 years prior, 2 years ago, we were elite in the red zone.
How many rushing touchdowns did that defense allow that year?
1 or 2.
Wasn't it something silly like that?
Yeah. They didn't allow one until like week 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was that front was silly when it was back against the wall time.
Yeah.
I mean, how many 3rd and short, 4th and short goal line stops did they have?
Goal line stops,
whenever it was just a team trying to run at them.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we allowed 8 rushing touchdowns.
I think I'm going to go with the under here.
Okay.
I feel like we have an opportunity at some more takeaways with this defensive style, and that's why. I don't have more analysis than that.
Okay. Matt is taking the over. I really want to take the under, but teams know what to do in the red zone in the Big Ten.
I'll go with the under. Same reason. I think a couple of takeaways, especially against some teams that are not the Ohio States and Indianas of the world, can really help that number, and maybe a couple of missed field goals as well, which we'll see. One thing we haven't talked about today is the new special teams coaches, but could they have a trick up their sleeve out there to maybe block a field goal at some point this year? That'd be cool. We'll see. I'll go under, though, and that's more hopeful than anything. I'm kind of with you of just, I hope a defense that wants to be aggressive and cause havoc can force some fumbles and get some interceptions in the red zone.
I think the defense is going to be overall better. I think they are going to get more turnovers, but I might not necessarily be inside the red zone. So for that aspect, I'm going to go with the over. Because I still just think teams, I kind of agree with Matt, where teams just know what to do in the red zone in the Big Ten. Question number 7.
We do play Oregon, though. They'd love to go for it on 4th down in the red zone.
No, that was Helfrich. Completely different coach. Question number 7, sacks by Nebraska's defense, 29.5. Nebraska had 22 last year, which was 15th in the conference. San Diego State had 32 last year. Idaho, for the 2 years, Orich was the defensive coordinator there. He basically had 22 per year in Idaho. This is basically, can we get back up above 30? We were at 30 2 previous years, dropped down to 22. I think we were at 30 and 32 last year, the previous 2 years.
And that was more a result last year of that defensive line never got a chance to pin their ears back.
No.
Yeah.
And Butler, as we talked about, losing confidence. I don't think he ever had confidence to bring the heat.
Yeah.
Well, they were terrified of somebody just handing the ball off and then all of a sudden it's a touchdown.
Yeah, so that 22 number is
We lucked
especially low.
into 21.
But as we talked about, that's
sacks.
the comedy of errors on defense that you had last year.
Yes.
I'll go over for that reason. It'll be tight, but I think Orich will be more willing to bring pressure at unexpected times. Second down, first down, those types of plays where he wants to cause a little havoc, and he's okay allowing the occasional explosive play, I think, in order for the payoff of keeping the offense on their toes. And I think that's going to lead to some sacks.
When you don't have elite talent at the positions that you're trying to talk about here that would get to the quarterback, you're going to make up for it in one of two ways. You're either going to play it safe and try and keep them in their zones, or you're going to attack, and allow the occasional mistake to get behind you. We tried the one last year. I'm going with attack this year. Hopefully it results in 30 plus.
And I also think for the most part, you went and got pass rushers out of the portal on that defensive line.
True.
Anthony Jones is a guy that it might not look at it like it statistically, but you go watch his film. That's a pretty good pass rusher. When Airy could take a step, Petshot could take a step. You look at Whittington, that's a guy on the interior that I think get him in a third and medium to third and long situation. I'm really intrigued by his just athletic ability on the inside to go get after the quarterback. I think you have some pass rushers on that defensive line this year that you really didn't have last year.
And you said over, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Matt is taking the under. He said, again, teams are just better at things like scoring and protecting their quarterback, also better quarterback awareness in Big Ten play. So he's going with the under. I think it's going to be right at the 29.5, but I think we can get to 30, so I'm going to go with the over.
And Anthony Jones knows 5 of the teams we're playing this year. Intimately.
Yeah.
The secret agent.
Yeah. He was our CIA guy all along. That's it. He was just collecting data for the last 5 years.
Majoring in covert operations.
Yes.
Question number 8.
Already got a desk at Langley.
Turnover margin for Nebraska. I'm basically asking, are we going to be in the positive? So I'm putting it at 0.5. Nebraska had +2 last year. That's the first positive turnover margin since 2016.
I'm going under. I think just simply Anthony Calandra and the play style that he has, we're going to give up the ball a little bit more than we did last year.
Mobile quarterback fumbles.
Yes. We're also not going to have a guy who's scared of his own shadow to let go of the ball in his own hands for the first 9 games of the year. So that's also going to add to that number.
And not to mention, you don't have a running back that's a bell cow that felt pretty impervious to fumbling the football with Emmett Johnson. There's a lot of reasons to believe that this offense is going to have more turnovers this year.
Yes.
It's okay. It's kind of the offense that you're forced to live with the excitement of Calandra. You have to deal with some of the downsides, which are he'll be unsafe with the ball at times. He'll trust his arm a little bit too much. He'll try to fit things into tight windows over the middle of the field. It's going to lead to explosive plays, but it's also going to lead to some plays that make you want to rip your hair out. Combine that with the fact that I think you have running backs that aren't Emmett Johnson that will likely regress back towards the mean in terms of fumbling, and I'll go the under as well.
Yeah, I'm
and they didn't spend an entire offseason beating the running backs up for their fumbles.
Yeah. Is it clean sweep of the unders?
Yeah, I'm going to take the under also. It's kind of along the same lines that Michael Severe always talks about, where Calandra could be top 5 in total yards, but he could also be top 5 in turnovers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
100% agree.
I'm going to go with the under on that one. Question number 9. Tackles by Owen Chambliss, 90.5. We had this number last year as far as who will be will the leading tackler go over 90.5 tackles. We were just under that last year with Javin Wright. Chambliss had 110 last year, which was 29th in the country. Leaders at Idaho for 2 years with Orich was 81 and 111, so a little give and take there on that one. At Nebraska, no one has gone over 90 since Luke Reimer did it with 109 in 2021.
I'm going over just because of his numbers from last year.
But that was, the year before that, he had like 40 tackles, so it's not
That's
like
fair.
I'm just,
That's fair. I'm going over just because, I think he is going to be the not so secret weapon.
Well, and also as far as comparison goes, not that they're the same body by any means, or even the same player, but you saw Marcus Watson Trent come in last year with like 2 or 3 years of over 100 tackles, and he had like 80.
Yeah, but he was a midget.
So I'm not trying to say that they're the same player. I'm just You brought up you're taking Chambliss because of what he did last year. I'm just
no. I get what you're
what was
saying.
the injury he was playing through last year? Watson didn't he have
it was a shoulder, I think.
Didn't he have like a fully ruptured hamstring or something crazy like that?
I didn't know about that. No, I think Watson Trent, his biggest thing was he was used to playing in a smaller conference as a smaller guy.
Yeah.
This is the opposite. He is a giant at his position who's also the quarterback of the defense and knows everything about this scheme. Yep. And as long as the guys in front of him are doing it, he's going to eat.
Watson Trent played through a torn shoulder labrum and a ruptured quad.
Okay, so we were both right. I said shoulder.
Wow.
You said leg.
Either one was bad, but both. How did he stay on the field?
I just thought I remembered seeing, those big sleeves that you, just on the one arm that, that kind of supported his shoulder. But yeah. So you're taking the over. Matt took the over. He said no real reason to expect it, but bring it on, baby. Okay.
You're gonna say, bring it on, baby.
Bring it on.
That's how he said it.
That's how exactly we did.
You're waiting for me, and I know you are.
I am. He's gonna have a good reason to go under here.
I really want to say over, but it's boring if everyone goes over.
Let me ask this. Do you think he's going to have to share snaps?
No.
I don't think so either.
No, that's going to be your field general on the defensive side of the ball. That's not a guy you're going to want to take off the field. Give me the over.
Okay.
Give me the over. The one thing that gives me pause is he has been in the yellow non-contact jersey at practice, and I do go, ooh, I don't like a guy gets injured during fall camp, but I don't think that's a reason for me. The talent's undeniable, and for the most part, linebacker is a spot where being able to diagnose what an offense wants to do, being a film room junkie type of guy, that translates pretty well where you should be in the right place at the right time at the next level.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is going to be the second straight question where we all take the same thing. I'm going with the over as well.
Listening to that dude talk, he has a future in coaching after his NFL career. Like, he sounds like he knows what the hell is going on.
And whenever you hear a coaching staff, you hear a guy like that, and then you hear a coaching staff who talks about instinctive and how he's always in the right place. That is a guy that some people call it instincts. What it is it's a guy that lives in the film room.
Yeah.
And
he's a junkie.
Through your time playing football, you live in the film room enough. As a play is developing, you realize exactly how the offense is trying to influence a defense and what that means they're likely trying to run. I think he's one of those super, super high-level processors on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's why he's been so great at SDSU, and I think that translates pretty well to Nebraska.
And from a size perspective, where he was playing, he was almost like, it was like a cheat code. So 110, I don't see that. But 90, 95, I see it.
Question number 10. Of these four guys, who will lead the team in tackles for loss? Williams Nwaneri, Vincent Shavers, Cade Petschak, Owen Chambliss. Nwaneri had 5 last year. Shavers had 7.5. Petschak had 7. And Owen Chambliss had 9.5.
How many of those for Petschak were in the first 3 games of the year, though? Wasn't it like 5 or 6?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
I can find out here in a second.
I guess to be fair, though, how many tackles for loss did Nebraska rack up through the last 8 games of the year last year?
That's an excellent question. I'm just going to make this simple.
The last 3 games, we had 12 tackles for loss total.
No, that's more than I thought.
I'm going with the guy who I think is going to be the standout on the D-line this year, and I think it's Nwaneri. That's going to be his job this year.
So just for with a question, Cade Petschak had 2 against Akron, 2 against Maryland, 1 against USC, 1 against UCLA, and 1 against Utah. So 3 of his 7 came in the last month of the season.
Okay. That one against USC was massive too.
So he got it spread out a little bit.
More than
Wasn't that the one where they were on like the 3-yard line or something like that? He took them back to like the 12 and they kicked a field goal.
I don't.
And it was on one of the getting cute plays down in the red zone.
Yeah,
cost him a touchdown early in the game.
I've scrubbed a lot of that game from my memory. Aside from the blackout, that was cool.
Yeah.
I'll for the same reasons as last question, I'll go with Chambliss. Instinctive football player, leader of the defense.
Yeah. Matt is going with Shavers. Monster year coming from this kid. Big step forward if he stays healthy. You know what? I haven't done this in a while, and it's usually what I do when one guy hasn't been picked. Fuck it, Petschak hasn't been taken, so I'll take him.
I mean, he was a co-leader on the team last year. It's a decent pick.
And dark horse out there, it's not on the list, and for good reason. But Dexter Foster is a dark horse pick for me. know some folks that were around the Oregon State football program and spoke to just the work ethic that guy had through his entire time at Oregon State. Great athlete. And then
Wasn't he hurt last year too?
Yeah. But kind of like that balls to the wall, treats practice like a game type of guy, weight room warrior that I think could be very exciting in this defense this year.
I basically just focused on taking the top 3 returning guys and then obviously Owen Chambliss with the 9.5 from last year. So that's my thought process in taking those.
And that's why I said
guys.
Foster shouldn't be on that list for us, but that is a dark horse candidate for you guys if you want someone to follow.
I like that.
Question number 11. This one might get a little nuanced, but pick one or both or neither of these options. Option 1, Nebraska's offense averages more than 30 points per game. By the way, they have not gone over 30 points per game since 2015. They were exactly 30 points per game in 2018. Option 2, Nebraska's defense allows less than 20 points per game. They had 2 years below 20 points per game with Tony White, but they had not gone below 20 points per game since 2010. So do you think option 1 or option 2 happens, or neither or both?
I'm going back to my Texas swagger comment about Dana Holgorsen. I see us going over on the 30 and taking a little bit of that pressure off the defense. And for that reason, I think that 20, maybe go to 24. If that number was 24, I'd say both, but I'm going with option 1.
Okay.
I'm looking at how many Big Ten teams were over 30 points per game last year. 30 is always a really good number. That cutoff then is the top 44 offenses in the country. That featured Penn State, surprisingly.
It's because they put 100 on us at the end of the season.
That probably does help. So Penn State, Ohio State, Washington.
6 teams went over 30.
USC, Oregon, Indiana. With that in mind, give me the over. It's tougher.
Well, no, it's
but sorry, not the defense. Just give me option 1, over 30 points per game. It's tougher in college football nowadays with how the clock rules have changed to be able to be putting up 30 points per game.
Yeah.
It's more difficult than it was a couple years ago with the clock continuously running and not stopping on first downs and whatnot. But I still think this offense, probably aided by the first 3 games, is going to put up a good number of points this year. The concern to me is, do you have any games where against, say, in Indiana, your offense gets held down and you only put up 7 points? That's the only concern to me with that. I think this will be a more consistent scoring offense this year, though, by and large.
Matt is actually taking only option 2. He said, we will be close on offense, but not get there due to some defenses in the last half of the season. I expect we can keep teams low on D, though.
He is way more high on the defense than I expected him to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kool-Aid.
He did pick us to win 8 games. And he's usually the pessimist of the group.
Well, the thing is 8 is not the most unreasonable thing I've ever heard.
No.
You can lose to all the teams that are ranked ahead of you, aside from Iowa, which I think they're a bit of a paper tiger with their ranking this year. They're still Iowa, don't get me wrong. They're still going to win 8 games. But
they've got a quarterback and a wide receiver, as you pointed out.
Yeah, but they lost a lot on their lines of scrimmage. Another reason why I think they might throw the ball around a little bit this year. But like, if you lose to Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, and Washington, it's still not unfeasible this team can go 8-4. It's a lot of winnable football games aside from those 4.
100%.
I think the smart pick is to go with neither, but I'm going to go with option 1 also. The last question I've got is, we have 7 home games. What's our win total in our 7 home games? I got it at 4.5. It's basically going to come down to, do you think we're going to go 2-0 versus Washington, Maryland? Because obviously we got the first 3 games, and then we've got Indiana and Ohio State, which obviously everybody's expecting a loss. So then the other 2 games are Maryland and Washington. Basically, do we split those or do we go 2-0? So 4.5 home wins.
Well, based on our prediction show, I've got to go with over.
We have won 5 home games only one time since 2016.
That's kind of a wild stat to think about.
Yeah.
Especially, didn't we have a season 2 or 3 years ago where we had 8 home games?
Probably. I guess I didn't. I just counted the wins. I wasn't counting the win-loss to add up the total number of games.
This one scares me more than I'd like to admit, because it's the Maryland game that scares me, honestly.
I think it does too. We did this last week. I said I was scared of the Maryland game, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, no.
Did you guys see what Malik Washington did against Nebraska last year as a true freshman?
Yeah.
The thing is is will Loxley get in their way as a team? Probably.
He questioned whether or not Loxley would be coaching that game.
Well, because they're 2 games before that, Virginia Tech and I think UCLA. You know, if they go 0-2 in those games,
and it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
But he's done a great job at Cube. They have talent on that Maryland roster.
But they always have. Since he's been there.
And I think they have, whether it bears out in the stats or not this year, a top 5 quarterback in the Big Ten in Washington.
I completely agree.
And I think he is probably going to go be a first-round pick once he transfers to Miami.
Yeah, once Loxley gets fired and he transfers out and goes to Miami,
Yeah, then probably be a first-round pick. But again, not the team from a depth of talent point of view is not Nebraska, and it's one of the few coaches in the Big Ten where I do look at Nebraska. Nebraska's got the advantage on the sideline against Mike Loxley. So, but that game does scare me. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to go under.
Yeah, I'm going under as well. Matt is taking the over because he thinks we win 5 games this year at home. But I'm going at the under because I just don't see us going 2-0 again in those 2 games.
Yeah.
Because Washington scares me too. So, who knows?
The wild card, though, is Ohio State. It's a potential
the look ahead
spot to Michigan.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And if they already have enough hay in the barn for a college football playoff run, how much do you want to come to a potentially cold Lincoln, Nebraska and play a team in Nebraska that you don't care about because you have Michigan in 6 days or 7 days?
We did kind of embarrass them last year, though. You see that happening back-to-back years?
Ohio State?
Yeah, don't you remember? We were like in that game until what was
2 years ago, yeah.
Oh, is that what I'm thinking of? 2 years ago?
2 years ago in Columbus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I don't know how much of an embarrassment that was, but I mean, we just looked good. I don't know how embarrassing that was, but
because
they also ended up going on and winning the national title that year.
That's true, but after getting our asses whipped by Indiana the week before.
But I also think that is the ultimate example of a team that looked past Nebraska.
Yeah.
And
True.
Ohio State has been prone to doing that under Ryan Day.
True.
If there's any game on their schedule that they are prone to looking ahead, it's the week before Michigan. Whenever, there's a chance that Michigan could be compete for a college football playoff at the end of this year. There's a good chance Ohio State's got a tough schedule, but if they get some good wins early, if they go beat a Texas and they beat Indiana, I think they have Indiana scheduled this year. I'm pretty sure they do.
Yes. I think they have Indiana and Oregon.
Oregon, that's what I thought.
They play at Indiana.
So if you're 2-1 in those 3 games, do you need to go beat Nebraska? You could still lose to Nebraska and make the playoff. I don't know. That's
Elijah talked himself into the over.
No, I did not, because I could still very realistically.
We're losing to Washington, but we're beating Ohio State.
I can see that. Wouldn't that be the most Nebraska shit ever?
Yeah, it would.
0-2 against Washington,
100%.
and Maryland. Everyone's out in the season, then you go somehow take down Ohio State at home.
100%.
Yeah.
Think about like whenever you beat a playoff-bound Michigan State team with the illegal Brandon Riley catch.
Yeah.
Who expected that one to happen?
Yeah, you never know.
That was almost 10 years ago now, though. So that's sad to think about.
Yes, it is.
Dude, thank you so much for joining us. Tell everybody all the different. You're on how many? Are you on 17 different radio shows now?
About 40. 40. So
lay it out.
Yeah. First and foremost, the Average Joe Sports Show, 7 shows a week. By the time this is up, we're going to have our game by game season prediction show. That's coming your way Saturday morning. We'll have the spreadsheet up. So we're going to make our predictions. That'll be Gary Sharp, Chris Schmidt, my co-host, Mark Kranak, Bill Dolman, and myself. We're going to go through and make our predictions for the year. Again, the weekend editions come your way 7:45 on Saturday mornings, streaming live on our YouTube channel, The Average Joe Sports Show. And then we get up in podcast form as well. And then Sunday mornings at 10:30, which once we get into the season, that becomes a very, very morning after reaction show. So make sure you find us, follow us, The Average Joe Sports Show. And we have a lot of fun. Gary Sharp, I know people have been missing their Gary Sharp, but he's kind enough to join us every single weekend for those 2 shows. And then Monday through Friday, you can catch Chris Schmidt and myself 4 to 6. We go live on radio, so that's KFOR in Lincoln, News Talk 900 in Columbus, which covers most of the Omaha metropolitan area.
Not true.
A good part. It doesn't get.
I drive the interstate. I can't get it.
It's West Omaha. I have buddies in Gretna and Elkhorn that get it. So
there you go. Maybe they just have better antennas on their cars. I don't know.
And then we're on the Superstation ESPN Tri-Cities. That is in Kearney, Grand Island, Hastings. So that area out there, you can catch us. But anywhere you are, you can catch the Average Joe Sports Show streaming live again on our YouTube channel, The Average Joe Sports Show, or find us in podcast form as well. Try to bring you some great guests throughout the week, and then we have fun on the weekends with Gary Sharp, Bill Dolman, Mark Kranak, Schmidt, and myself. So there's the plug. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Love it, man.
Thanks for checking out Big Red Junkies. Thanks for checking out the Average Joe Sports Show.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.